Hello, ladies. Welcome. I'm so glad you guys are all here. I know we have some more that are going to join in as we go along, and we'll be recording it for those who can't make it. So if you would put in the chat your name and just where you're located, of course. I will fix that in a second. That would be great. So we can just see where everybody is from. I've had this like webcam plugged in for like an hour and had no issues. And then, of course, it's like it knows. All right, let me see if I can try it one more time. If not, we will switch. There we go. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay. So I want to share a little bit about just my journey and how the Lord has brought me to becoming a doula and the birth work that I've been doing. And then I want to answer all of your questions. So I want to share a little bit, and then I want to hear from you guys and answer whatever questions you have, because I know how hard it can be to not know the answers. And it's a big step to jump into something that's such a big commitment. And yeah, so I am here to answer those questions for you and hopefully give you some insight. So my name is Shanna Bradley, and this is actually my third baby. We have 6 kids and we homeschool, and they range from 21 down to 3 years old. So she currently is 15, almost 16, getting a driver's license. So it's kind of funny looking at this picture. But what I've found training doulas, like 400 plus doulas over the last few years, is that most women come into the calling of birth work in one of two ways. Either they had a really traumatic birth and they were like, whoa, I don't want a traumatic birth. Or they're like, oh, I had the most beautiful birth that's like picturesque, and I want to share that with everyone, and I want everyone to have these wonderful births. So those are like the two main categories, and I fall into both of them. So with my first birth, I was 19. I graduated high school at 17, got married at 18, had a baby at 19. And I just thought you show up in the hospital and, it's the hospital. They do all the things and it's great. And again, this was 21 years ago, but that was not my experience. It was very traumatic, and there was so much I didn't know that I didn't know that I needed to know. And it became even more traumatic 2 years later when I had our second son. And it wasn't the most beautiful birth, but it was a really calm, non-traumatic birth. And I thought, why was this birth like this and so traumatic and hard and chaotic? And this one was more simple and less crazy and chaotic. And I was an EMT at this point, and I was just like, what made these two things different? And already working in the medical field, I started looking into what that looked like medically. And so it took several years and a journey. I had not heard of what a doula was probably for another two more kids. I did. So this is my third. I did not have a doula with her. So she's 15, almost 16. The next one is 13, going on 14. So somewhere between those two is when I first heard of what a doula is. And so that really brought me back to these two births of that makes sense. Now that I know and understand so much about birth, this is such a great and beautiful solution. And if I have more kids, I really want to do it. So with our fourth, I did. And then our fifth, I did. And then our sixth, I had midwives and I had a doula, but she was a doula, birth photographer, all the things. But so I find that to be true for most. The majority of doulas are moms who have had one or the other birth. And then there are some who are younger or haven't had kids yet, and they just see the beauty in birth and how empowering it is and how they want to come alongside women in that. So there is a third category, but there's not as many of those. Most of them are one or the other. So I'm curious if you guys want to share and let me know, do you fall into one of those categories, or are you not a mom yet and you may have saw a birth when you were, like your sister be born, or you saw a cousin being born, or how did you have a love for birth? So I would love to hear from you guys if you want to share your story. Yeah, Shed.
I'll go first. Hi, everyone. I'm Jin. I'm from the Philippines. And as you know, in the Philippines, we I only know a few doulas who reside to what you call Antipolo, but I'm here in Cavite, and my experience is that my water broke, and then I had to go into induction. It was really traumatic for me. And my vision is that in the Philippines, we'll have the same care, the same support that you guys have in the US or in the other countries, unlike here in the Philippines. So I really hope and pray that we get to experience that same support and love from doulas around the world.
Thanks for sharing. Anybody else want to share?
I can
What's,
go next.
yeah, okay.
My name is Brooke. I don't have kids and I'm not married. I don't have kids yet. But I think I can remember for most of my life, like even as a younger kid, I remember just feeling like drawn to birth and like really interested in it and curious about it. And so yeah, obviously I don't fall into either of these two categories, but I kind of just feel a calling that I believe is from the Lord, like to support like women in the time of their birth and of meeting their babies. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of learn more about it and yeah, to just follow like what the Lord has for me.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. You do fall into the third category. It's just not as common of, but
That's true. Yeah, totally.
anybody else would like to share?
Can share too.
Yeah, awesome.
Um, I can relate to a lot of what you said, Shanna, about your own experiences. I felt the same way when I had my first baby. I thought, I'll go to the hospital. They know what they're doing. They do this all the time, so they'll help me figure it out. And um, there were just so many things that didn't go great. Um, I have 6 kids of my own, and the first 3 were born in a hospital. All of them were inductions. And after that third induction experience, I was just like, I'm so done with the hospital. I don't know what I'll do next time, but I'm not doing that. Um, and shortly after that, became a regulated public health service in the province that I lived in. So for my last 3 babies, I had midwife attended home births, and the the contrast between the two is just so stark. I felt so supported having midwives there, and I feel like not there's a way more demand for midwives than there are midwives actually available to serve women where I live, and so I feel like doulas kind of bridge that gap for all of the women who want more support in a hospital setting that don't have access to a midwife. So
Yeah.
I've attended a few births just for friends within our church, and I just have felt for years that that's a ministry that God's calling me to. So, yeah,
Yeah, thanks for sharing. What part of Canada are you in?
Western Canada in Alberta.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, there's such a big midwifery like growing group in Canada, and I love having doula students from Canada. I can't answer all their questions sometimes because the healthcare system's different, but I have more and more from Canada, and I love what's going on up there as far as more midwives, more doulas, more choices. So, yeah, thanks for sharing. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I fall into the category that is less popular. I am only 16, but I am one of 7 kids, and I've always been interested in everything doula, midwifery, just birth, labor, all of that. I've always been interested in all that. And then I think it was a couple years ago, I just really started praying, and I was genuinely just like, is this something like, Lord, is this something that you want me to do with my life? And I went to Falls Creek one year, and I got called to ministry and missions, but to be a doula or midwife in the missions. And I have a lot of family that are missionaries all the places, so it's been something that I personally have been very interested in. But I'm really excited to get the chance to start down the road that leads to all the possibilities. And it's just something I'm very interested in and excited for.
I
So,
love that.
yeah.
I definitely had the call to ministry at 11 to work with internationals and different communities and cultures. So I totally get it. And I had no idea what that would look like. And I was kind of like, Lord, what will I do? How
Yeah.
will I do that? What will I provide? And I had no idea that it would be birth work ministry. So yes, I'm so excited to like talk to you more and help you as
Yes.
you walk through that journey because it's so awesome to know that call. So I know so
Yes.
many things that I want to tell you, but yeah, so I will
Fantastic.
definitely be a great resource because that's my jam right there. So
Yeah. Thank you so
awesome.
much.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about the different kinds of doulas. And if you have more questions, I would love to explain them. But some of them you guys might obviously know, like a birth and labor doula, same thing. They come alongside of women during pregnancy, birth, and postpartum, like the immediate postpartum. And then you have postpartum doulas who are more scheduled shifts. This camera like really hates me. Okay. And they come and do like in-home care for several hours, potentially like it really is like a wide range between a couple hours, a couple times a week to like all day, every day. And then bereavement loss doulas are those who come alongside of women during um, miscarriage, stillbirth, or infant loss. And then fertility doulas come alongside, help with fertility, infertility, in that. And then there's adoption doulas that come alongside either or. So they have adoption doulas that help with the birth mom who is giving up the baby. And then there's also doulas or the same doulas, but they can also work with the parents that are adopting the baby too, to come alongside and help in those ways. So those are just a few. There are a lot of different kinds of doulas. But the word doula comes from doulos, which means servant, and doula is a female servant. So it's really a woman who serves women. And so that's where the word comes from. And so that started with birth and labor and then it has expanded to postpartum and bereavement and fertility and adoption and a whole wide range. There's end of life as well, or death doulas, same thing, end of life and death doulas. There is a lot of different kinds of doulas. So these are some that Global Birth Community offer. We offer birth doula, postpartum doula, and newborn care specialist. They're very similar. So they overlap. So we do a training all together as one. We have bereavement doula training. We have childbirth educator, and then we have lactation coming early next year. So again, it's really a woman coming alongside of a woman in this season of life in one way or another. So being on call. So this is the number one thing that I get asked because again, most doulas who come into doulaing are moms, and that's what brought them into the profession. And so on call can be super hard and tricky. So this really only applies to birth doulas and bereavement doulas. Postpartum doulas have it much easier where they can schedule it out, but being on call can be tricky. And when you don't have little kids, it's a lot easier. So that is one thing about not having kids yet is being on call. You don't have to find the childcare. So we talk a lot about how that works, how we can navigate that depending on if you have family or what your husband does, who's around you, who's in your sphere. How do we get good childcare to be able to do the on-call life? And in the beginning, on-call was much harder. I would literally sit around and be like, oh, I can't go anywhere because I'm going to get this call and I have to be there. And what if I'm not ready? To 10 years down the road, I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm just going to take my stuff. And, you just can't live your life never doing anything. But I do like take into account like proximity and checking in with certain moms. I have a mom who was due last Friday. So she, in her first baby, she came 2 days early. So I was with them for their first baby. This is her second baby. And we thought for sure this baby was coming early too. So I really kind of planned on that. And so did they. And here we are, like past her due date. We're talking about, okay, she wants to birth outside the hospital at a birthing center. They have a 42-week limit. So we're pivoting a little bit in talking about strategy and, steps now because she wasn't expecting to go this far. And so it's just hard to know, right? So now I'm more like, this has to happen sooner than later. And, but I still have to like live my life and But there are ways to help with that. And it's the way that we give boundaries and communication and correspondence with our clients to help them to know how to tell us, how to contact us, how to keep us posted so that we can still go get groceries. We still can take our kids to the community pool down the street, and live within that, but then also systems that we can put in place to be successful to go to those bursts when they happen. And so there's kind of strategy to it. And so we do teach about that within the doula program, but that can be really hard depending on what resources you have for family and friends, or if you live in a city, 10 hours away from anybody that you're related to or know or went to school with. And so we step through that and figure out how do we problem solve, have plan A and plan B, so that we can make sure we can do that. But we want to make sure that we can also sustain this on-call life and not have burnout. So birth workers have a really high tendency of burnout, usually within 3 years. Full-time people in ministry also have a really high burnout rate within 2 to 3 years. And so we're combining both of those things where we're serving women and we are on call. And so both of those things we want to be like really aware and do all the things to stack the deck of not having burnout and making sure we refill our cup in between. And so we walk through that, but it's not as scary as it sounds. And then we put systems into place and backup systems to make it sustainable. So any questions about on-call? Okay. So training, when you guys are considering training, I want you to think through several different things. So doula training used to always be only in person. That's the only thing that existed really pre-COVID. And when we started training, we only did in person. And I said, I'm only going to do in-person training. You kind of have to do the hands-on. You got to do the hip squeezes. You got to do all the movements. You got to have, you really want that interaction. And I remember saying, Lord, I don't ever want to do this online thing. And then COVID hit, and it was kind of like either train online or you don't get to train doulas anymore for this season. And so we went online, and there are downsides to it, but the upside is I have trained women from 50 different countries, and that wouldn't have been possible only in person. So there's pros and cons to it. So we still offer in-person training when we can. We have several coming up in the US over the next 2 years, and then we have several international trips planned for the next 2 years as well. And so I just want you to think through when you're looking at doula training, what's the right path for you? Is it one that you can do in person? Is it one that you can do online? Or do you want a hybrid? So we kind of offer that too. And then classroom or self-paced. So when you do online, you have these options. So if you're going that route, do you want live interaction where you have somebody who's actually instructing you and teaching you? Are you in a cohort with other students? Or do you want just self-paced that you can do on your own time because your life's super busy? So we actually at Global Birth Community do a flipped classroom approach that actually combines both of them. And so we do the live Zooms once a week for 2 hours. And for our birth doula training, that's a 5-week series. And then for our postpartum, it's a 4-week series. Our bereavement is a 10-week series. It's a little different. It's only for an hour each. And there's a different instructor for that. And so we do that. And then each week you have an online portal that you go in and you have homework and videos and things that are self-paced. So you have both. So instead of having really, really long classes, you have one class a week where you get to interact with everybody, ask your questions, we do activities, and then you have your on your own time as well. So we offer that. That's mostly what everybody takes, but we do offer a full self-paced version that has the recording of the classes. So if you can't make it, most of our classes right now are Monday nights. And so if you're like, hey, my kid has soccer every Monday night, I get that. And so you can watch the recordings and still participate in a cohort as well. So think that through. How do you learn best? And what does that look like for you? Birth philosophy and language. So this really kind of blows me away a little bit. Getting into birth work like almost 11 years ago now, but I never would have imagined us getting rid of the terminology woman and mother and breastfeeding. But now there's a lot of, most doula trainings are inclusive language where it's birthing person, it is body feeding or chest feeding. You can only say partner. They don't really talk about a dad or like a family. unit. And so I was really surprised and shocked by that as I did continuing ed. And even I'm a student midwife as well. And even going into midwifery, now the textbooks that have always been around are now doing away with those words. And so that didn't really sit right with me. And I had a real struggle with some of the courses that I was taking as a doula, trainings like continuing ed and midwifery. Like, Lord, how does this work? Like, how do you serve women without calling them women? How do you serve moms who aren't called moms? Like, it's very confusing to me. So when we started the training, we said we'll always use traditional language. And so that is important to me, but that's not important to everybody. But I do want to let you know that the birth philosophy and language might be something you look at when you're looking at all your doula training options, because more and more they're almost all inclusive language. And so you would go along with that. And then some of them have statements of like agreements that you have to like agree to X, Y, and Z. So we have a lot of students that come and cross train with us from other organizations that are really big, like Doula, because they can't get behind their statements of agreements. And so just be aware of that. Pick a doula training that fits with your morals, your values, your beliefs, because they look very different. Some are very much like, this is a business. It's not relational. It's just a job that you clock in and clock out and you get paid a lot of money and you should do X, Y, and Z. And then some of them are, all about only out of hospital. It needs to be at home. It needs to be, non-medical. No one touches you. No one talks to you. Like there's just like all the way one way, all the way the other way. So when you're looking into a doula training, you want to find one that aligns with who you are and how you want to practice birth, because that's how they'll train you. So our birth philosophy is traditional language as well as birth work is ministry, but it can also be your career and provide income for yourself and your family. So both things can be true. You can work in ministry and be paid for it. And so we show you how to do that and how to do that hopefully really well and balanced. So just something to consider. Time frame and requirements. So this is also a big one. So some require a lot of book work, a lot of going out and doing all of these things, and usually take 6 to 12 months. And they're really intensive. And some you can get done in a really short period of time that are just not very comprehensive. And so you want to look at that, as well as what are the requirements. So for one big organization, you pay for a packet fee, and then you pay them continuous fees every 2 years, and then you pay your instructor the big fee, and then there's always like another fee here, another fee there, and it's this continuous cycle of fees every 2 to 3 years, depending on the organization. We have certify once, and you are good. The other ones that require multiple certifications, recertifications, also require continuing ed hours that you have to pay for generally. Sometimes you can find free ones. So that's another expense as well. And we know that if you love what you're doing and you're continuing to do it, you're going to want to take another class. You're going to want to take another workshop. You don't need us to tell you that, because you're going to learn, because there's so much to learn and you just love it. And so I do tell people, though, if they want to send me a check every 2 years, I will not reject it. It will go to serving women around the world or supporting missionaries who do midwifery or whatever that looks like. But I'm not going to say no to a check every 2 years, but we do not require that. We want to have the least amount of barriers so that we can train more doulas worldwide. And so to require doulas in the Philippines to like pay us every 2 years to keep a certification doesn't really make sense. And so if it doesn't make sense for them, I don't want that to be a burden for anyone else either. And so we have a one-time fee, and that's it. And so look into that too, because there are some great big training organizations, but the timeframes, the requirements are way more intense and somewhat maybe more overdone. And then knowing all the fees required and the upkeep of it. So the cost is part of that. So and it ranges. Doula trainings are usually $600 to $2,000 depending on what you're doing. And then again, if it's on the lower end, there's usually extra additional fees that you'll want to see, like, do I pay this here and here and here, and then renewals and things like that. So taking into consideration all of those things when you're picking the right doula training for you. The other big question is, what do I charge? What is the going rate in your area? So this really depends. We have like a cheat sheet of small towns, medium cities, and big cities, like capital cities. Not so much in Canada, but I would love to like investigate that. But I would think it's somewhat similar. Um, but it really depends on your area and your cost of living, really. But for the low end, about $800 for, we're going to talk about birth. For birth, about $800 up to about $1,800. And that really depends too. So if you're talking like East Coast, West Coast, you could start with like $1,800 and go up from there, 2,000, 2,200, depending on what all you're offering. If you're in a more rural area in like Alabama, you're looking at more like 800 starting, and then you can add more services or like offerings that can increase that. But that's kind of the base is as little as 800 in more rural areas to more, bigger cities, like moderate cities, I would say about 1,000. And then the larger cities, we're starting out about 1,200. But again, if you're going big city, East Coast, West Coast, that looks a little different. So these are not like LA or New York City prices. They start a much higher than that. So I am so bad at looking at the chat. I do go back and look at it, but where do you guys live in, like big cities? Do you live more rural? I know we have one in the province in Canada, in Alberta, is that what you said? But what does that look like for the rest of you? What kind of city do you live in? Or not city? You live in a town with two stop signs. It's where I came from. Two stoplights. We had two stoplights eventually, but let's see if I can see. So Oregon. Yeah, actually, there's a ton. There's such a big movement out in Oregon in that area. Seattle, like everything in Washington and Oregon, there's so much birth out there. Now you get all kinds of birth philosophies and birth workers and ideas. But it's huge out there. Rhode Island. I have not trained a doula in Rhode Island, I don't think. So that would be one of the few states I have left. So I'd love to add that. Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a good one. I'm guessing that's not a super big city, but Oklahoma has a great birth community and culture. Tulsa has some excellent birth centers. I know some midwives out there. I was actually born in Oklahoma City. We moved when I was 3 months old, but I was born out there. In Dallas, Fort Worth, there's a huge movement in Texas as well, as far as birth and going more natural, and doulas and midwives. And I know some really great people in Dallas, Fort Worth as well. My son's actually there right now for the summer till September, but there's a lot of opportunity in the Dallas, Fort Worth area as well. So yeah. Okay, so you have 1.2. Yeah, I would say that that's probably like that 1,000 range. But again, it just kind of depends on what your area, and you can usually Google, talk to other doulas, find out what that rate is. And as far as like postpartum doulas, it really ranges from the low end is really like $30 all the way up to 50, 65 plus dollars per hour, depending on a lot of different things. So is it a daytime shift? Is it nighttime hours? Is it overnight? Is it holiday? Is it weekends? A whole lot of things involved in there. So, but on the bottom end, we're talking about maybe really rurally, like $30 an hour. But postpartum doulas, again, can schedule out their hours and have a more set income versus birth doulas. You can't predict birth. So can you do this full-time or part-time? So you can definitely do it full-time, but I tell people you are a small business owner generally. You can join an agency, but most doulas work on their own or a combination of agency on their own. And as any small business owner, it usually takes 3 to 5 years to build your clientele, to build your business, to get to like replacing income sometimes. And not everybody wants to do it full-time. Again, if you have 6 kids at home and you homeschool, you probably don't want 8 clients a month. But a good full-time is really about 4 clients a month is what most people do, is that 3 to 4 area. If you go more than 4, it just gets more overwhelming, and you need to have a lot more systems in place. And some people do 1 a month and they're really happy with that. So it really varies. But I do tell people if they're in a full-time job, it does usually take some time to build up those clients if they want to work for themselves. Now, I have a friend slash doula that I trained in Virginia in the Richmond area. She literally started the class, didn't really know much about doulaing. She had just moved to that area off the missions field. And within the shortest period of time, she was with an agency and booked crazy. And so now she's like, I don't want to work with the agency because like I'm so like I get all these people asking me all the time. And she's only, when did she take the class? Earlier this year, I want to say maybe the February class. And it's just blown up and God has just opened so many doors. And so it really just depends on several different things. So she's turning people away because she does have little kids still. And so it really depends. So agencies are an option too, sometimes depending on how you want to fill your schedule. And what do I do about childcare, which some of you have and some of you don't. Again, we walk through that. How do we set up those systems and strategies to be sustainable and successful? And there are ways to do it. And once you get that in place, that is a big barrier. But once we get past that, it makes it a lot easier. So created to birth is just what we call our doula training. So created to birth is our birth doula training, and created to nurture is our postpartum class. But I wanted to make doula training accessible to all communities and all cultures. And I have a video that I can send out with this recording that shares our organization's birth story. But basically, I was working with immigrants and refugees and working cross-culturally. And the Lord brought me birth work. And I was like, okay, what do I do with these two things? Can I combine them? I was doing births with immigrants and refugees through a Christian organization. And I was like, this is such an opportunity. And I was also doing missions training at the same time to go international. And in that, we learned, completely unrelated, but we learned that there are 3 times in a person's life when they're most open to spiritual things, where they have the most questions, when they're seeking like purpose of life, when they're like, is there really a creator? Like, what does this all mean? And that is birth, marriage, and death. And in a marriage, there's a marriage ceremony overseen by a pastor, and they can offer the gospel to everyone there. At a funeral ceremony, it's overseen by a pastor, and they can offer the gospel there. And those are like 1-day, one-time events. Birth, unless the dad is the pastor, there's probably not a pastor at the birth, because that would be weird. Would that be weird if you're like pastor's like, hey, I'm going to show up in your labor? That would be weird. Yep. And so this is a time that women can come alongside of women, and not just for a birth in one day. They get to come alongside during pregnancy, the birth, and into the postpartum. And not just one funeral or one marriage, because that's usually how it works, right? You have another, like this mom that I'm waiting on. This is baby number 2. I talked to 2 other past clients, and they're on baby number 3 and number 4. And you luckily can repeat clients and work with these women again and again. I mean, I had babies for 18 years, on and off for 18 years. So if I have the same doula from the beginning to the end, that's like a whole lifetime of pouring into someone. And so it's just such an opportunity. And I saw that it is a way to be the hands and feet of Jesus, and to show love and compassion and Christ-centered care, and show women really their true worth. And so that's kind of the heart under what we do. And so I had started a nonprofit in our area in Indiana to come alongside immigrants, refugees, and teen moms to provide doula services, because that was not a thing available to that demographic, and to provide free childbirth education. And then as I did that, I knew that we needed more doulas to work within their own communities and cultures, within the refugee population, within, different demographics. And so I was like, Lord, some of these organizations don't really make sense to train women who English isn't their first language. So how do we do that? How do I get these women trained well? And he opened the door to start our own curriculum and education. And so we started doing that. So I started training believers within the refugee communities that we have here. I started training up Spanish immigrants to teach and support women who were Spanish speaking. I trained some of the first doulas of color in our area. And so it's just been such an opportunity. And as we did that locally, people reached out from other countries and said, will you come do that here? And I said, of course, I'll come over there and do it. And so we've had opportunities to go overseas and train up believers right in their own community, and to come alongside women in this way too. So this is just the heart behind what we do. And proceeds from the cohorts go to do the trainings internationally, like in the Philippines and in India and in Mexico, which are the next three places that we're going to be going internationally, to be able to provide these trainings where these places don't normally have access to that. And so you're part of so much more than just a class and cohort with Global Birth Community. You're part of really a movement of believers using birth work as ministry. So that's really our heart. So this is your time. What are your questions? And I guess I'll tell you this, and then I can answer your questions. So we have our next birth doula training. It's technically in August, but we have a really small class. So if I get a few more ladies, then we'll have an August class. We're actually moving next week to another state, and so I'm like, if we don't have enough students, we'll probably just postpone a month and push our classes back. So if you guys are interested and ready to start, then we'll have a class in August. But if not, we'll postpone it a month, just so we have more fun with more students. And then postpartum always follows that. So we do a bundle deal. 90% of our students take birth and postpartum, gives them a full rounded foundation to really pick and choose which they want to do. And they work so well together. So we always do birth, postpartum, and then usually take a month off. And then we do birth and postpartum. And so you can do the bundle deal, which is the best value, where you get both for $9.97. And then we also have bereavement doula training, which is done with another instructor named Sarah, who's super great. And that will be Thursdays in September. So I train on Mondays and she trains on Thursdays. And that program is 10 weeks, but it's only an hour each week because she has a lot of little kids. And so she sets it up a little bit different. And as a thank you for sitting here and listening to me share everything that I love, we want to give you a code July QA if you sign up. I think by Wednesday. I'm pretty sure Wednesday. So you have just under a week to sign up and you get $100 off whether you do birth, postpartum, bereavement, or the combo. And we do a bundle deal too with bereavement for $14.97 if you want to do all three. And then you would take your birth and then you can take your bereavement at the same time, or we can like stagger it however you want. But yeah, I just want to offer that to you guys because again, we want to create as few barriers and obstacles so that more women can step into the calling that you guys shared about. So come and join me in doing my dream job and the ministry that I love. And yeah, so tell me, what questions do you have?
I have a question about the like, so does your training get you certified to kind of practice like wherever in the world, or like does it because I know like some states, and I know Oregon has pretty like strict requirements for doulas as far as like being billed by like being able to bill Medicaid. And so I kind of just wonder like,
Yeah.
what are the like, where can you practice
Yeah.
with your
So
training?
technically you can practice anywhere in any state, and you can practice in Canada, you can practice anywhere in the world. This fun new thing that's been happening over the last few years is Medicaid reimbursement. So every state has its own thing. In the state that I'm currently in, they approved doulas for Medicaid like 5 years ago, but then never funded it and never made it the committee to like actually follow through. But the states that have, they all made up their own requirements. And so, for instance, Ohio next door, they make you take an Ohio state made up doula training, even if you've been a doula for 50 years. They said you have to take our doula training or you can't call yourself a doula. Ohio's the only one who's done that, but every state's a little bit different. So some states say yes, and then we submit like our objectives and everything that you've learned, and then we get approved, by that state for Medicaid. Some states say you can only be reimbursed by Medicaid if you are with DONA or CAPA. Like every state has different requirements. So we're more than happy to submit all of our curriculum and everything that you learn and objectives and all those things to Medicaid. And but a lot of women actually choose not to do it. It really depends. Some states, I know, like again, Washington and Oregon has like so good of like just midwifery and doulaing. Just birth options out there are just more popular than other places. So I'm not sure what Oregon's regulations are for Medicaid, but you would be able to still get tons of clients even if you didn't go that route. A lot of doulas start and think Medicaid makes sense, but Medicaid has so many hoops to jump through, and then the reimbursement is much lower in the end compared to what you actually have to do, that people drop it all the time as well. So like I don't know specifically because every state is so different. I can't give you the specifics, but we will do everything as an organization to get you that if that's something that you're interested, but I can't speak specifically because I just don't know off the top of my head. I know we've trained doulas out there. I just don't know if they've gotten Medicaid reimbursement or not. So
Okay, totally, that makes sense. Thank you.
I am working on, we are looking at Seattle. So we're going to come out to Seattle sometime early next year and do an in-person training because we have a sweet lady over there and she's like, there are no Christian birth workers here. Like there's a lot of birth workers, but they're not Christians. And I need more people that are like minded to do this work with. And I'm like, yeah, you do. And I've never even been to Seattle. And so I'm like, of course I'll come because I say of course to everything. My husband's over here and he's like, yeah, she says yes to everything. If I can like go somewhere and like teach people, yeah, I'll do it. And so yeah, so I'm working with her to get everything approved through Medicaid. So it's really funny. She actually works within the healthcare system and works with Medicaid. Like she's in like medical billing or medical something. So she's like, I will help you figure that out. So we'll have one that's Medicaid approved in Seattle, obviously for the state of Washington, which you're not in. But I'm just saying, like, they usually have requirements and we're willing to like do whatever we can to fulfill those requirements. Some states are just like, as long as your doula certificate says the amount of hours completed, they'll accept it. And so we had to change our cert to say hours completed because like no one's ever asked for that. So like it's just stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. But as far as like if you don't want Medicaid reimbursement and you're just out there, you can use our certification anywhere. Um there's no
Okay.
barriers, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that does.
What other questions do you ladies have?
Uh, There's another question
Okay.
from owner. He's asking, what is
Sorry, I missed that last part. What is the cost of just the postpartum? It's $597, but you get $100 off $497. And we do have payment plan options. It's at the very end. So you can like go through the whole registration and then you can choose that before paying. So you can then see your options. But I think it's like a 3 or 4 separate payment plan that you can choose. It's like through a third party, but you can break it down into payments as well if you're interested in doing that. So
I think in an email that I got, it said that you were going to have the birth and labor doula class um, in October as well. If you shuffle things around now, if you move your August to September, would there still be an October, or how does that work?
there will just be the September and then October will be postpartum.
Okay, because I don't think I can do August because my son's getting married in August. So it's going to be a busy month, but September I could probably do. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
I had thought that October would be a good option, but
yeah.
then I could probably shift to September. So
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure it out because I was like, can I get 2 more cohort like groups in before the end of the year? And like my head says yes. But with this huge like moving and all these things, I've just have been like not on top of everything. And so I'm like, maybe we should just do the one last group. And so, but we do it 3 to 4 times a year on a rotation. But we just came back from the Philippines. And so we're just trying to figure out tomorrow. But yeah, I can keep you posted. And you can also do the self-paced. So if we do it in August and you can't do August, you can still sign up in September and you will have access to all the recordings that we did. You just wouldn't have the live interaction. But I'm never opposed to having another class. So if we do September, October, and then we have people who are like, we don't want to wait till February, then I'll be like, all right, let's make this last class in November into December and work around the holidays. Like we wouldn't do like the week of Thanksgiving or anything. I'm not opposed to that either. So we're just trying to whatever you guys want. Yeah. Any other questions?
also, it's not a question,
Yeah.
but I was telling my family about the Zoom call that I was going to be on after supper. I was telling my kids about it, and my son, he's 18. He said, It's so interesting because I told him about what you had said in a video about um, birth being an opportunity to be in ministry at a very pivotal time, and how many um, I mean, you already summarized this, but birth, marriage, and death, these are big opportunities. And women have a unique opportunity to be able to minister to people during that time. And he said, because I was just thinking about how um, within the church, too often the conversation focuses potentially on what women can't do in ministry. And he said, I love that this is something that women are uniquely gifted for. So it's so, I can't tell you how cool it is to have your grown child bless you in what you feel that God is calling you to.
Yeah, I love that so much.
I
That's
just
so
love that
awesome.
you have this community here and that you're doing this training in a Christian way. It's a huge blessing to have found you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we also, to speak into that too, we have a monthly Zoom call that we used to do, and then I went to the Philippines and put it on hold. But we're starting it up again next week, and it's called Birthwork is Ministry, and it is a free Zoom on Thursday nights, which we'll have to change when we do our we're going to do a childbirth ed class in September on Thursday nights, but we'll find another night in September to do it. But we connect with birth workers around the world, mostly doulas, but also some midwives, some chiropractors, some women who work at crisis pregnancy centers. And we get on and we just like share with each other. We talk through some things, we pray together, and it's just a community of believers. So, like I was talking about the lady in Seattle, she's like, I don't know any other Christian birth workers. And so, and that can be true for the ladies in the Philippines that I've trained, or, these different places where we need community. And so we're like, okay, we have this power of the internet. And so let's connect and stay connected because we don't want to be burned out and we need other people to, surround us in this and support us and encourage us. And so yeah, you can sign up for that. That will be next Thursday night. And come whatever months you can, and they'll be recorded and posted on our YouTube as well. But yeah, it's so important. And we've had a couple doulas that have come through. I had one in Pennsylvania, Delaware. I can never remember, Pennsylvania or Delaware. I think Delaware. And she said, there are no other Christian doulas here, and I need someone else to do this with. I have kids, I homeschool. And I said, well, let's pray about it. So we prayed about it. And she came back and she was like, hey, I met this new mom at church and she wants to be a doula and she wants to take your training. And so she then took the training and now they partner together and they do all sorts of awesome things. And then I had another do the same thing couple classes later. She's like, I can't remember what state. And she's like, but there's no one here. And I said, well, we're going to pray about that. And the Lord brought her someone else. And she took the class too. And they work together. And I've had lots of pairs. I just had a mother-daughter combo as well, which is so fun. I've had a couple of those. And so it's so much better when you can do ministry in life with someone else who's like-minded. So if you know, don't have that yet either where you're at, tell your son because he seems super wise to be praying for that because we want you to have that where you're at. But to fill in for those who don't, or just to bring more of that into your life, you can join the free Zooms as well so we can stay connected and really be supporting each other in a place that is really spiritual warfare. And it's just a ground for Satan to take hold because he doesn't want to see new life. He does not want to see babies being born into loving, welcoming homes. He doesn't want to see mothers being praised. He doesn't want to see success in a nuclear family or, any kind of bonding. So this is really a place where we need to hold fast to what the Lord says and be the hands and feet and pray for our clients, pray for the clients he's going to bring to us. But it's such a beautiful thing. So it's a hard thing. I'm not going to pretend like it's not a hard thing and it's not exhausting because it is. But the joy is not comparable to be able to see. This is literally the only job that I know of. I mean, you could tell me, but no one else has told me another job where like you get to witness miracles. Like how many people just like, what do you do? I witness miracles. Like people invite me to witness their miracles. Yeah, it's pretty cool. What job is that? Well, I'm a birth doula. So like every time I go to work, basically I get to witness miracles. Like and when you see a baby take his first breath, I just don't know how you can't deep down somewhere in that hole know that there is a creator, that was not some accident. That wasn't some atoms hitting together billions of years ago. Like that it's just it's just so much truth and beauty and such an opportunity, like your son said, for women to just do that within the church. And so, yeah. So I'm happy to walk alongside of you, ladies. And even if you decide to do another training or something that fits better for you, you are still welcome. The Zoom is open to anybody, not just our students, because it's about building community. So, any other questions?
Do you do trainings like in other countries like abroad? Like you mentioned like Philippines and some other places. Like did you go there to do doula work, or are there like trainings available for people wanting to be doulas too?
Yeah. So we did Kyrgyzstan, which is next to Russia, and we were the first known doula training in that country and trained the first doulas there. And then I have another trainer that's gone back at least 2 more times and trained more doulas. And then they worked with the Department of Health, and now the doulas get to go in the hospitals. I went and trained doulas in Cape Town, South Africa. They did have a few, but they were foreigners. So we trained up a bunch of locals. And then I went to the Philippines, and there was about 20-ish known doulas in the Philippines, but just in Manila alone, there's like 17 million people. And most of those doulas were in the Manila area. And so, and now there's way, way less. So we just left in April, and I was talking to a director of a birthing center, and she said she had like 3 women reach out and want doulas. And she said, "Oh, well, I know there's these doula groups." And so she reached out, and there was no one to serve these women. Like doulas are just like dropping off because there's just not enough support or education. And so there's very few doulas. So we trained up some more doulas, and we're going over there, and we've been asked to train more doulas in 3 different locations, but it's on 3 different islands. And so there's a lot of logistics involved because they're not close to each other. And so I mean, doulas exist and they have full access to TikTok and social media and all the things. So there is a bigger and bigger demand and need and want for it. The problem is that most women birth in the hospital. There's a lot of like factors there, and a lot of hospitals won't let doulas in yet, and so it's hard for them to make a living that way. And so, and then India, there are some doulas, but again, compared to the number, like there's like next to none. And there's a higher and bigger demand there, again, through social media and things where they want doulas, and more birthing centers are allowing doulas. But again, if you have public hospitals, they're not about bringing in outsiders to like be advocates. They're not up for that yet. But in these other places, what we've seen in our strategy is to go in there and actually work within providers and hospitals. So I can also train in helping babies breathe and helping mothers survive. So helping babies breathe is newborn resuscitation for babies, and then helping mothers survive is how to help moms in a postpartum hemorrhage to survive. And those are the 2 things that kill people, right? Is and increases infant and maternal mortality rates. So if I can go into the hospitals and say, "Hey, I will provide these free trainings and these tools," and they're like, "Hey, that's great. Oh, you're awesome. We love you." Oh, great. That's great because I just trained a whole bunch of doulas also in your city. So if you want to talk, do you want to see what they can do and how they can best help you? So it's about working within the system to help the system understand how doulas can actually provide support and actually offset the workload that they actually have and get better baby and infant outcomes. So there's a lot of work to be done in a lot of places, because otherwise, like it feels like doulas are coming in because they're trying to fight the system. So we try to help encourage how we work within the system, but also support the mom. So it's a little tricky, but it is becoming more and more across the world. We'll be going to Mexico and working within a birth center that works with the Spanish speaking population there, also the German Mennonite population, and the indigenous women from the mountains. And so we're actually going to do the Mexico training in Spanish, which I don't speak Spanish, but I coordinate all the teams and I work with them and train them. And then we go to these locations and we make them each specifically culturally specific to that area, and then work with birthing centers or organizations that come alongside pregnant moms, so that there's like a whole system set up for when, we aren't there. We just kind of provide some of these resources and education So I'm looking for Spanish speakers to go to Mexico. But we have alumni whose students who come and help put on these trainings. We help them to get confident in teaching some of these things. But every training looks a little bit different. And again, we try to work with the departments of health to be able to see the value in doulas, but just like anything else, it takes time. So yeah, but it's moving along. Just like more and more states recognizing it through Medicaid and companies recognizing reimbursing doulas in the US. Generally, obviously, we're usually first in doing some of those things. There are some European countries that are so good with midwifery and care that they actually are the doulas. And so there's some countries that don't really need doulas in that capacity. I've worked with a lot of German midwives from Sweden, Switzerland, some of these places where they're like, I guess we're the doulas. And so then we just help them have some other skills and things that they might not have learned. But yeah, so some places doulas are really, really growing. I have a good friend who is in Africa, and she is a local, and she's taken a bunch of doula trainings and taking in all this information. And she is like propelling childbirth educators and doulas in this like village in Africa. She's moving to the city actually to work at a birthing center and get even more skills, but she's putting on these amazing childbirth ed classes and doing all these things. So it's growing. It's growing at a rapid rate, actually. So
I have a question about how much time it would take within a week. So you're saying there's a 2-hour Zoom class on a Monday.
Yep.
And then you self-pace yourself throughout the week to be ready for the next week. So how much time are you looking at for commitment?
Yeah. Great question. So generally an hour and a half to 2 hours. And so there's additional videos, but again, if you watch them in like 1.5 speed, then it's a lot less time. And the videos that I'm teaching, I suggest watching them in 1.5 speed. I don't know. I always watch my videos in like 1.5 to 2 point, but that's really up to you. And we would like you to get the homework done prior, the portal homework. But if you don't, like you fully have access to that. It doesn't go away. It doesn't actually affect you. You just have to complete it before you finish your certification. So if you have like a really busy week and you don't get to all of it, that's fine. It doesn't it helps a little bit for the next class because we kind of build from there and we answer the questions directly related, but you can make it up later. Like we're like, hey, ideally, if you can do it, then you do it. And then we have another part, which I didn't really talk about, but we do have two books that you choose from, and you write book reports, and then you do a community resource list. And you can start the book reports now. Like if you're waiting to take the training, you can start reading and doing your community resource list now to like spread it out a little bit. But that's not like within a week or a month. That's however long that it takes you to do that. And so those requirements are just like completely just, on your own time. So again, if you can't complete all the things within that portal for that hour and a half to 2 hours in that week, that's totally fine. But you do need to go back and finish it before.
Thanks.
So overall, you have about 20 hours of education as far as like direct lecture. And then on top of that, you have the 2 book reports and your community resource list, which if you're a mom and you've lived in the same area for a long time, that community resource list is a lot easier. If you're like 17 and you're like, I don't know any of those things yet, that takes a little bit longer to do that research. And so, those things vary too. So. Are you homeschooled? Are you still in school?
Yeah, I'm homeschooled along with my siblings.
Yeah. So did I talk to your mom?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I told her that we have had other homeschoolers who actually get credit and use it as like high school class. And I told her,
sweet. Okay.
And I told her if you need extra assignments, I'm happy to give you more work. But we have had students. Most organizations require you to have already graduated from high school. As a homeschooling mom of my own and having a daughter who's like almost 16, and Chin's never met her in person, but she seems way older. In the Philippines, when we were in the Philippines, everyone's like, "Oh, Maganda, you're such a beautiful woman," and we're like, "She's 14, okay." and leave her alone. And so that means beautiful. So everyone's like, these men are like, you're so beautiful. Like, let's talk. And we're like, she's 14, she's 15. Anyways, she's very mature, and she also was there for her baby sister be born. And so she could totally do this. She doesn't want to. She's like, yeah, I'm not ready for all of that
Yeah.
yet. But I see that, especially homeschoolers, they can handle that. And if you already know that you have that call and passion, why wait? Like, what is another year going to do? It's not going to make you any less passionate. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there are some challenges there, for sure.
Hmm.
But I did talk to your mom about that. But you can definitely use it as high school credit if she wants to do that. We have had other students do that too. So,
Sweet. Thank you.
yeah. Anybody else? Well, I'm so glad you guys are here. Yeah, did you have a
Sorry.
question?
There's one more, okay?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I just wonder, do you go over in the course like specifics on like how to build your own business and like how to build clients?
Yes.
I'm assuming you do, but
Yes. Yeah. So like our last class, we do business, and then we have business within the portal as well. And I just had a student ask me, a past student, and she wasn't ready to like build a business yet, but now that she's like done some other things, she's like ready to build that business. So we actually are probably going to do a live Zoom and actually record it and talk through the business steps again, and just like walk through the barriers that she's coming up with, and just have that available to all the students. And because the goal is that I want you to thrive. And so I run a couple businesses and have run a couple other businesses prior to this one. And so to walk you through that, because a lot of what we do as doulas and caring and serving women is like one part of the brain, and running a business is a whole nother side of the brain. And so midwives are amazing, but we have so many failed birth centers because they want to be midwives. They don't want to be administrators and running these businesses. And so it takes both sides of the brains to do that. And so we want to make sure that we can help you to be successful, and give you the tools to do that as much as we can. And so we also have mentoring that we're going to be starting, small mentoring groups as well, to walk them through the business side of things, because there's only so many hours in this doula training. We could make it like we could make it hours after hours and hours and hours. And so we are adding more workshops and courses, so that you have access to those that aren't required, but there's definitely more business coming, and more videos and more workshops, so that you have it all laid out. So you can really focus on serving women. Running a nonprofit and starting it from the ground up was so exhausting. And then once I trained more doulas to serve the women, I was out doing all the admin, all of the support raising, all the grant writing, all of these things that like I did them because they had to be done because there's no one else to do them. But then I didn't get to serve women the way that my heart wants to serve women. And so like I totally get it. So I want to make it as easy as possible to be able to run the business successful, so that you don't have to use as much brain power, so you can really serve women well. So definitely we do business, we do the basics, but we are getting more and more of the advanced to offer to you, as well as we have a CPA who comes on and gives you tips and tricks and how to do all your tax stuff. And we have a guy that I'm working with who's going to come on and talk about saving and financial planning, and how to get ducks in a row business wise for that as well. And we're going to have other experts come on who aren't necessarily birth workers, but they have skills and other things that we all need to know as business owners, because we just can't teach you all the things about business. So, but we will have it in bite-sized pieces that you can bite off when you're ready. So
that's awesome. Thanks.
all right. Well, I want to close in praying for you ladies. So I'm so excited. And again, I'm here. You can reach out, and I'll be sending out this recording. We had several more ladies who I knew couldn't make it. And then if you want to use that discount code, let me know. And then if we switch dates or something, we'll figure that out for you. But so, all right. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for each and every one of these women that you brought here from all over the US and Canada and the Philippines, and the women who will be watching this, Lord. We just thank you for the heart that you've given to them to serve women, to come alongside of women in such a vulnerable season. We just thank you for what her son said about just this is a way for women to serve within the church, and to just be part of growing your kingdom, being the hands and feet of Jesus, and caring for women in the way that they should be cared for, and loving them the way that you love us, Lord. And we just thank you for putting this in each and every one of them. I pray that you be with them as they take the next steps in obedience towards becoming birth workers and whatever that looks like for them. And I just pray that you go before them and be with the families that you will bring to them, that they will serve, and just make your name known through just the ministry of birth work. So I just thank you for each and every one of them, and that they were able to find us and hear a little bit about the passion that you put in my heart for combining just my love for Jesus and my love for birth, and how beautiful that can be. So we just thank you and praise you in your name. Amen.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you, ladies. Have a great
Thank you so
night.
much. God bless.
Thank you.